Hello, my healing fam. Welcome to Healing Not Healed, where we would talk about all things mental health and holistic wellness in a very culturally competent and transparent space. So, I want you guys to see my new mic. Well, it's not really new, but I'm bringing it into focus because I like that it changes colors. Science has shown that we can feel certain way about certain colors. Certain colors can make us feel certain ways. And so I was going to change it to certain colors, play a little game with you guys, change it to certain colors when I'm recording, and you guys can guess what mood I'm in, or you can let me know what mood that color puts you in. Either way, we can play a game, either or, we can guess. But for today, I'm going to leave it there. So for today, I wanted to talk about community in a sense of podcasting, right? I've always had this theory about how podcasting got popular and just the community and the growth behind podcasting. I actually was interested. I kind of dabbled with it about 10 years ago before it got really popular on Anchor. That's now Spotify. I had a little tidbit on there and I was getting feedback from peers and things like that, and it was just a space to vent and just kind of sometimes be inspirational, but it didn't really have like a goal or a purpose. It was just kind of a hobby type of thing. I eventually stopped, and same with blogging. I had a blog going on for a while, and I was getting good feedback from and that was very therapeutic for me during a time, just processing a lot of things, as well as giving therapeutic concepts as I was processing those things. And I was getting, again, good feedback from peers about it that loved it. But it did cause me to shrink the more I realized that people were reading it. Although I know subconsciously, on a subconscious level, I was desiring community and connection through my writing and through my podcasting, I shrank because I realized, it's a very vulnerable piece of myself that I was offering to people. And although, the goal subconsciously was connection, I started to feel more shame than connection. And some of that was shame I was carrying for myself, and some of that was shame I was carrying for other people. So I started to keep everything I was experiencing to myself and my therapist, of course. I was going to therapy because I can honestly say that if you weren't physically there in my life, you had no idea what was going on and what I was going through until it was after the fact, maybe even years down the line. The closest people to me did not know much of what was going on in my life. And so I didn't get much consoling in major life events, I would say. So, and that's not shade to them. It was that I did not seek nor feel like I had space to have that, those moments of consoling and during, like I said, major life events in the midst of those years. And it was just a lot of stuff that occurred that I really didn't tell people while it was occurring, but processed it by myself and in therapy, and then after the fact would kind of let people in. And so at that time, when I had stopped writing and I had stopped blogging, a lot of the community that I felt I had at that time, the people that I hadn't gone to, that I eventually went to, because a lot of the community that I had received was from that marriage. And so it felt very isolating. And it was erroneous in my thinking that I had to deal with everything by myself. So I stopped writing. So I stopped blogging, because you don't want the people you care about, and not just not my marriage, just people around me in general, family, issues, things like that. You don't want to make the people you care about, when you're telling your side of your truth, or processing your side of your truth, you don't want to make people you care about look bad. And so a lot of that stuff was kept in and wasn't processed with my writing and my blogging. And I just kept a good face in a sense of, I probably acted out in ways that people knew that I wasn't okay, but also it was kind of like, check her pulse, she's still breathing, cool. But it wasn't much like I said, intimate consoling. So it wasn't like I felt like I had connection or community at that time. And that's no fault of no one's. That's, again, me not also seeking and being vulnerable enough to say I needed help, or I wanted support, or I needed support. And so at that time, I felt alone and abandoned, and I further perpetuated by not seeking support and community with the people that I knew and loved. And because also, again, that shame and embarrassment aspect of feeling like a failure or just feeling vulnerable. And so there's aspects of social media or blogging that felt safe because you did feel like you were kind of talking to yourself or talking to people that didn't necessarily know the intimate people in your life. I felt proud and like a coward at the same time, because I felt proud in that I was telling my truth in some aspects, and like the encouragement that it gave other people in that aspect, but a coward because it also felt like my truth would hurt other people. And then, especially in the eyes of people that know those people and they see them in a different light. And you don't want people condemning people you love either, right? Like, your experience is just your experience, and I can process it as factual, not as good or bad, but other people might not be able to do that. And so that criticism and that shame that you hold for other people, because you I know where I fucked up at, and I can hold that ill, but I'm not trying to shame or embarrass someone else. Like, my proudness or my lack of shame in my experience doesn't remove shame for someone else's. And so, again, that's what makes it very vulnerable for people to kind of speak their truth too, because you just don't know how. Your experience isn't a solo experience. You walk this earth with other people, and so those people, you care about those people, and other people care about those people, and so it just becomes how much can you really share in a comfortable space without tearing people down, because you know how media responds to people regardless of objectivity. It's very emotional, and they respond emotionally. Although I was happy to have people cheer me on about experiences, I didn't want them to look down on other people. And I know that sounds weird, but my career can tell you, like, I just have a lot of empathy for people, and though, their experiences, they might have gone through some. I'm a person that, and that's probably too bad to my core, that makes me a therapist, but hurt people. So I don't generally think of people as all bad and all good. And so I know some people can't think like that emotionally sometimes. So my silence became more about a protective quality, protecting myself, protecting people I care about, people I love, although I didn't feel protected in certain cases. But just thinking back on those moments and thinking about the culture of podcasting, I just think about many of others just wanting community, and I wanted community. I wanted to feel understood. I wanted to feel accepted. I wanted to feel even loved, because I felt like I wasn't getting that within my daily life, in my community, like much other people who express themselves online. Taking stock of how I felt and what I felt I needed, and I can absolutely understand why and how people want platforms to speak on in search of community. And even if you don't have a desire to speak on platforms, why people, even if you're fearful or you don't have a desire, why people have a liking to them and flock to podcasts and YouTube channels. People are searching for community. People are longing for community. They want a sense of belonging in a place that, in a world that makes them feel insignificant. I see like Facebook groups and all these Eventbrites and meetups and Bumble and all these dating apps, and everybody's searching for connection but ending up empty handed. So everybody wants the same thing, but nobody's having a shared experience. It's because people are going into the exchanges very superficially. But at least with podcasts, there's no fear of being vulnerable for the listener, right? You get to have this shared experience of vulnerability with someone without necessarily being vulnerable, except for the person being vulnerable behind the mic. So is there a sense of building community, of a shared experience with the person that's choosing to be vulnerable? I take this back to our natural indigenous cultural norms where we sat in circles and we talked and we shared stories and we shared relics, we shared history, we shared knowledge. A lot of things were passed down through word of mouth, and we sat and we communed together, we ate together, we broke bread together, we danced together. Yes, we did labor, we did work, we got things done, we cropped, you know what I mean? But we also commune, and that was the majority. That is our natural being. And so I think people flock to environments that seem like community but have no natural ability to connect because the lack of intimacy and fear of vulnerability that it would take to actually commune on that level, because it's a reciprocal relationship. And I think a lot of people are just too burnt out to actually experience that. Emotionally burnt out, physically, mentally, financially. We are systematically trained to just go, 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 that we don't make time for the emotional labor of other people. And so we lack community despite being in environments of community because we're not doing the emotional labor. And so, again, I think that's what makes the appease of podcasting and social media, is that it's a cheap way, a microwavable way to get connection with people, because you get to see that shared experience without actually having that level of intimacy. You get to see their level of intimacy and connect, and you may connect, and maybe that's the appease, or the positive of it is that it encourages other people to share their stories or be vulnerable in their experiences. But to other people, it's like oversharing, or it's too much, or it's we ain't asked for all that, we ain't come here for all that. And it's like, actually, people are on social media for connection and community. They are emotionally drained, actually, but nobody wants to hear that part. People will check your stories and will scroll on your life and send you memes and send you photos and videos before they actually reach out and connect to you. And so I don't have a good or bad opinion about that, because I think there is a level of connection with that. You get to stay connected and, see your nieces and nephews grow up and see your, especially if you long distance, for a lot of us that don't live, around our families, there's positives out of social media that keeps us connected, but also it's a microwave. So for me, I want to keep this platform a vulnerable and reciprocal and intentional relationship. So that is my intent, to have healthy conversation, exchange information, continue to uplift and inspire and help in any way that I can. I'm going to continue to dissect my own truths and my own experiences in a very applicable way that can be meaningful. So I do want this to feel like a community space, a safe community space. So feel free to interact publicly or privately on any of my platforms. This is not a superficial connection. I have gone through a lot of strangers and associates, and I have gotten a lot of support from people who aren't even my friends and family, and I am grateful for that. Initially, I was guarded about it, which is why I stopped writing and blogging and podcasting, because the love and support wasn't from who I was expecting it from. It was from complete strangers or associates. And but I am extremely grateful for those that have reached out and have been very supportive. And they have definitely been a community that has supported me in building a better community within my own community, if that makes sense. A lot of courage to speak to people about things that I was experiencing and build those relationships and that intimacy and that vulnerability, that I now have that courage to come back and say, okay, this is how I can look at it objectively. And so, but it was certainly what I needed, and it reminded me that I wasn't alone, and has always reminded me that I'm not alone. And so that this is a reminder to you too, that you are not alone.